What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we're going to be looking at a pair of Transformers TCG battle cards. They have been revealed on the official Facebook group, and to be entirely blunt, you can't split them up. They are a pair. And what's really cool about this, they are either for Autobots or Decepticons, but they are not for any mixing between the two. Now, there's a really good article on the Facebook group. I will try and remember to post a link in the description. But essentially, back in Wave 1, we didn't have that many cards. Like 40 character cards and 81 battle cards, and you didn't have that much. So Wizards have said in multiple podcasts and interviews that if they had done the whole you're only allowed to play Autobots or you're only allowed to play Decepticons, that really would have limited your deck building options. Plus, we had things like Jetfire being the only Autobot plane and Nemesis Prime being the only Decepticon truck, which were deliberately put in there to encourage you to mix factions. Well, with Wave 2, there's a few more cards, there's more room for creativity, and we're left with a pair of cards, Scoundrel's Blaster and Noble's Blaster. They both have a blue and a green pip, and Scoundrel's Blaster can only be put on Decepticons, and Noble's Blaster can only be put on Autobots. And what they do is they give you +2 attack, which is rather nice. And while the upgraded character is attacking the other faction, Autobot or Decepticon, it has Pierce too. So essentially, these are cards that really can only be played if you're going full Autobot or full Decepticon, and they become exponentially better if you are playing against a deck which is the other faction. Now, quick word on the icons here. Blue icon means that if you flip it while defending, you take 1 less damage, which is very nice. And the green icon says that if you flip it while attacking or defending, you may discard a card from your hand after the battle and put it into your hand, which means it's one of these upgrades which is much less likely to end up in the scrap pile after attacking or defending and unable to be used, and much more likely to actually find its way onto one of your character cards if you want to. And this is so specific, there will be games where frankly you don't want to. Now, in terms of the +2 attack, we've got other weapons which can do this. Obviously, Grenade Launcher gives you +4 attack, but also it only lasts for a single attack and you don't get the Pierce. Ion Blaster of Optimus Prime gives you +2 attack, but it also gives you 1 defense, but it's Optimus Prime only. I mean, if you just want +2 attack with a blue pip, you can go Primary Laser, but actually this is just so much better because you get the Pierce and it's got a green pip. I mean, Mounted Missiles is a really good new card, which has a double orange pip and it gives you +2 attack and it can go in the armor or utility slot, but it's also a star card, meaning that in order to play the card, you must have, well, not a 25-star deck. Want to play 1, you can have 24 stars of characters, 2, you can have 23 stars of characters, and so on. So in terms of an upgrade that gives you an extra 2 attack, this is phenomenal. Way better than the other options we've got. Now, in terms of Pierce, it's not quite as phenomenal. You see, if you want Pierce and Pierce is your goal, then Piercing Blaster has a white icon and gives you Pierce free. If you're playing a Megatron deck, you're actually better off going Fusion Cannon of Megatron, which also gives you Pierce free, but ups your attack by 1 as well. Though it does have a blue icon rather than a white, I leave that decision up to you. So in terms of the Pierce here, it's really good. And you have the advantage here that you are upping your attack and your Pierce. Remember, Pierce guarantees damage, but cannot be higher than your attack. So if you've got a Pierce of 4, Pierce does add together, then you guarantee 4 damage as long as your attack is 4. But if your Pierce is 4 and your attack is 3, then you can only actually have 3 damage because your Pierce cannot exceed your attack. Cool. A rather handy bonus then that this gives you +2 attack and gives you 2 Pierce. So as a piercing option, it's good, not amazing. The icons are pretty gosh darn good, although we do have a blue pip on a card which really wants to be attacking. We see this quite a lot. Obviously, we'd usually rather have an orange pip here if we're going for a full attacking deck. And the +2 attack is really nice. It's essentially better than the other options we've got. But now we come back to this coda, the appendix, whatever you want to call it. Scoundrel's Blaster can only be put on Decepticons. Noble's Blaster can only be put on Autobots. That's to get the +2 attack. And you only get the pierce against another faction. And this really is going to depend on which deck you're playing. So if you're playing an Insecticon deck, brilliant! All the Insecticons are Decepticons. I mean, you can tell that from the name. So you're absolutely golden here because you are going to be playing an entirely Decepticon deck. Similarly, if you want to go ahead and play a Dinobot deck, Dinobot, Autobot, you're going to be going full on into Autobots, so that is going to help you very nicely indeed. Similarly with Planes, we do have Jetfire, who is an Autobot, but generally speaking, we are probably going to be playing full Decepticon if we're playing Planes. So there are certain decks that are going to absolutely love this. I'll give you one more example, Metroplex. Metroplex essentially has to be its own deck, and therefore it's an Autobot. And actually, let's not sleep on Combiners. Combiners are going to share a faction. We've already seen the Predacons and Predaking, and obviously all of them tend to be Decepticons. They kind of have to. So there are certain decks where you're going to be absolutely golden. But there's going to be plenty of decks where you're not. One of the best and most popular decks around at the moment is Double Primes, where you play Optimus Prime Battlefield Legend, and you combine it with Nemesis Prime. Well, that pretty much locks you out of using this card. Sure, you can play it only to attach it to an Optimus Prime or a Nemesis Prime, but honestly, if you can only put it on one of your two characters, it's just not going to give you enough utility during the game. Now, some people, and I may well be one of these, are suggesting that Optimus Prime might have a different partner. Maybe it's going to be Windblade. We have not really seen enough cards from Wave 2 to make that decision properly. But actually, as it stands at the moment, maybe you'll use it, maybe you won't. And then we end up with the true wild card of this card. Because here's the thing, right? You can manipulate that you're only playing Autobots or only playing Decepticons, and therefore you are getting the +2 attack. That is absolutely in your control. What is not in your control is what your opponent's playing. So if you end up playing Noble's Blaster, playing a full Autobot list, and your opponent drops a Metroplex on the table, you can have the +2 attack, you can have the blue pip, you cannot have the pierce. If you're playing Insecticons against Dinobots, yay! But if you're playing Insecticons against Planes, boo! If you're playing against a mixed deck, let's say Double Primes, then it's not quite so bad. You can essentially try and choose which one you're attacking, not always possible, but you can try and choose which one you're attacking to make sure that you're doing it against the right person so that you get that pierce. Incidentally, this actually works. I've said about this in a couple of videos lately. This works very nice as a sideboard card. We don't know if we're ever going to have sideboards. We need organized play first. But sideboards are basically a bunch of cards whereby they're not in your deck, but you can add them in after game 1 or 2 of a best of 3. And this would make a very good sideboard card. Don't put it in your deck, but if you end up against a Decepticon deck and you're playing Noble's Blaster, then this becomes a rather nice card. But I don't know how much I can recommend it. If all you're getting is a +2 attack because that's what is in your control, it is, I suppose, still a better option than Primary Laser because they've got the same pip and the same plus attack, except you've got the green pip. So in that regard, it's quite nice. But maybe you want to play something like Grenade Launcher, or maybe you've got a star ready for mounted missiles. If you can guarantee that you're playing against the opposite faction, and if you're willing to play one faction, this is a phenomenal card. Otherwise, it's a little bit risky. I do like it just to add 2 attack with the green icon, If you're playing an all Autobot or all Decepticon deck, I think that's actually quite nice. But you don't get the full effect of this unless you're having something happen which is outside of your control. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That will work quite nicely. But I would like to know how well you think it will work. So do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, ladies and gentlemen. But please do remember the rule. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where I talk about Transformers and other games. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.